Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight is the last 24 hours before Rosh Hashanah. It's the best moment to discuss, serious stuff and Be'ezrat Hashem to plan for the great year ahead. We've studied together in the past, few weeks. We've studied together some ideas, what it means to pray for life. Life is meaning, having a plan, having something, plan for the future, how to do Teshuva, even if we don't have Hatzlacha and everything, but a little bit, you try. The fact that you try, the effort is the most important. Tonight, I would like to discuss one of the most important and famous 3 words that are said in the Tefillot. And it's really 3 different perspectives on how to approach ourselves, the day of Rosh Hashanah, and the Teshuvah in general. We say in the Tefillah that there are 3 things that work: Teshuva, Tefilah, and Tzedaka. The Teshuvah, we know what it is. The Tefilah is the prayer, and the Tzedaka is generosity. We will try to spend a few minutes on each. I call tonight's shiur reaching in, reaching up, and reaching out. If you think about it, Teshuvah is reaching into our persona, into ourselves, making a search into ourselves. The Tefilah is reaching up to Borei Olam. And the Tzedakah is reaching out to others, opening the hand. So let's talk about the 3. The first one is the Teshuvah, reaching in, a deep search into ourselves, into our soul. There's a very famous Divrei Torah that I heard on the name of Rabbi Galinsky. I would like to share with you. When somebody has an inspiration, many times it's difficult to make the jump right away. And sometimes it's wise to think about it. But this comes with a price. And I would like to discuss it with you. You all know the famous Gemara. It says that Kadosh Baruch Hu comes to Bnei Israel. And it says if you accept the Torah, then all will be fine. Meaning that was the plan ahead for you. If you don't have a system of laws, if you don't have a system of, everyone has to follow the law, so then it's not going to work. No society is going to survive like that. You need to have a system, a code. You have to have a system. And if you don't accept this Torah, then it's going to be the end. But the Gemara says a word that I mentioned in Hebrew, but I did not translate in English. If you do not accept the Torah, sham teheh kevuratchem. Over there, you will perish. It should have said, if you don't accept the Torah, then po teheh kevuratchem. This is the end. I created a world that was working on chesed, but you need more than that. You need to start becoming serious. So I'm coming with the Torah. If you accept it, then you're going to be surviving for the rest of eternity. But if you don't, that's it. That's the end. What's sham? Sham means over there is the end. I saw al pi Adrush a beautiful tirutz. We all have our commodities. We all have our ways of life. We all have the ways that we are, brought up. We have our routines. And there's something very, very wise I heard last week. Maybe for you it's not going to be a chidush. For me it was a big chidush. Sometimes you have a meeting with someone. When you do an interview, for example, when I was younger, get an interview. Somebody tells you, hey, where do you see yourself in 10 years from now? It's a very classic question. I never liked this question because when somebody asks you, where do you see yourself in 10 years from now? Well, the world is big. You could dream big. You could say any shtuyot you want. So, in 10 years, I see myself driving an Aston Martin. I see myself, let's say you were single, I will be married, I'll have 3-4 kids around me, I'll be successful, and I'll be a ben Torah, I'll be learning, I'll be everything. You could say whatever you want. I never understood, why do we even discuss how you see yourself in 10 years? Why is it so important? I learned a lesson that I'm sure every one of you is going to love. You know, after that question, where do you see yourself in 10 years? You should ask the next question is, where do you see yourself tomorrow? Tell me your short-term goal. Where do you see yourself tomorrow, in 2 days, in 3 days? And then you have to analyze like this. If the short goal times 150 equals the big goal in 5-10 years, then this guy will be successful. But if the short-term goal is going in a different direction than the long-term goal, then this person will never make it to the long-term goal. Because there's no such a thing as a big jump. It doesn't exist. It's always made of day after day after day after day. And when you add up 1 day and 2 days and 7 days and 100 days, then you end up after a long time, 5 years, 10 years, 25 years, 50 years. The long-term goals and the short-term goals have to match. You just have to multiply by a big number. But if they don't match, then this person is not a real visionary. This person will never make it to the big goal. So really in the interview, if you have to interview someone and you ask, where do you see yourself in 10 years? And tell them, where do you see yourself next week? Has to be a baby step, but in the direction that he was saying before about the long-term goal. If they don't match, that's not somebody you want to have around you. This is a genius idea. It's so simple though. I didn't say any chidush. 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals 1,000,000, but that's how you do 1 plus 1. So the 1 plus 1 plus 1, if you don't take advantage of it, you're never going to make it to the million. It's a big chidush for me, was an eye-opening. Our short-term goals have to match our long-term goals. If not, we won't make it. If you say, I want to be fit and skinny in 2 years, and you say, but I'm starting in a week or two, that's not happening. Short-term goals and long-term goals. Says Rav Galinsky, he says, when a person has a life, many times you talk to someone or you talk to yourself, you know, where do you see yourself in 5 years, in 10 years? Wow, I wish maybe one day I'll be with the people who finish the Shas. Maybe one day I'll be any goal that you're thinking long-term. If it doesn't match right now, tomorrow, or the day after, in a very, very small scale, then you're never going to make it there. You know what destroys a person? Sham tehekevuratchem. When you delay something and you put it in the sham. What's sham? Over there, further. When you put things that should be important and we delay them to the long term and we don't apply it to the short term, that's kivura. That's how people don't make it. The only way to make it is when I'm convinced about something. And what better than Erev Rosh Hashanah? We had time to think. We had time to analyze. This is a moment to make a decision. Take something that could be small, the baby step that mirrors a giant steps. Because the giant steps come with a myriad of baby steps. I want to share with you a very interesting 2 short stories. The first one is a story about Rabbi Yaakov Kaminetsky. Rabbi Yaakov Kaminetsky had a grandson who graduated from middle school into high school. And Rabbi Yaakov Kaminetsky said to him, you know, I bought you a present. I want to congratulate you. I know you made efforts during these 3 years of middle school. I'm going to give you a present. So, oh, yeah, you love presents? He said, yeah. He says, sure, tomorrow you'll get the present. So, okay, beautiful. He comes the next day to the grandson's house. The grandson comes to the grandfather's house. I don't know. and he gives him a present. He opens the present. It was a big box. You know what was inside there? A plant. He says to his grandpa, I'm not very botanical. I'm not necessarily, into plants. Why did you buy me a plant? To a kid, you buy a plant? Rav Yaakov Kaminetsky tells him, the plant is very, very interesting. I'm going to tell you something. When you're going to see the plant in the morning and you come back at night, you're going to see the exact same plant, right? Did it grow? Not really. You look at the plant the next day. Did it grow? Not really. Every day, try to compare with the day before and ask yourself the question, did this plant grow? Do you see any growth? And the answer is going to be negative. I don't see any growth of the plant in 24 hours. He says, but the truth of the matter is, when you're going to look at this plant in 3 years from now, the plant has doubled in size. Just that every day you can't see the growth. But at the end, after 3 years, you say, oh, wow, this plant grew so much. If you take the picture of the beginning and the picture at the end, it says, don't be fooled by yourself thinking that you don't grow every day. Every day you grow. You may not see the growth. You may not appreciate the growth that you have in any area that you have. But after a year, after 2 years, after 10 years, you have grown into a totally different person. And he says to the kid, let me ask you another question now. Let's go back to my first question. Does a plant grow every single day a little bit? He said, of course it does. He says, very good. I asked you at the beginning, does it grow every day? You said no. The answer is, of course it grows every day. But you can't discern the growth every day. It doesn't mean it doesn't grow every day. And by the way, if it doesn't grow every day, a drop, then after 3 years, you won't see the difference. You only see the difference after 3 years because it grows a little bit every single day. That's the sham. Don't have long-term goals that don't match the everyday goals. Everyday goals have to match a microcosm of the macrocosm. That's how it works. Another story is someone who once bought, what's a good, expensive pair of shoes? Santoni is good. A Santoni pair of shoes, a Louboutin. I know, Steven, you like Louboutin. Now they make men's models. They don't look like men's shoes. It doesn't matter. As long as the bottom is red, that's the most important. So you get a Louboutin pair of shoes. You pay a heck of a lot of money for that. This guy, he gets them home and he tries them and he walks with them a full day and he calls the store. He says, this pair of shoes is I'm so disappointed. I paid $1,500 for this pair of shoes. They're so uncomfortable. The man of the store says, you have to have these shoes for 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, call me back. You're going to see how comfortable they fit. The man, what did he do? He takes the pair of shoes, he puts them in the closet for 2 weeks, and 2 weeks later, he tries them on and he calls the man. He says, now, as uncomfortable as 2 weeks ago, I want my money back. So what did you do for 2 weeks? I did exactly like you told me. Call back in 2 weeks. I put them away for 2 weeks and I'm calling you back. So the reason why they don't fit well, it's because the leather is hard. But when you warm it up with your foot, a good pair of shoes is made of leather 100%, inside, outside, the bottom, everywhere. Why? So that it gets the shape of your foot. It's a living thing. It breathes. I said 2 weeks, you wear it for 2 weeks. And slowly, every minute, it will make a minor adjustment to your foot. In 2 weeks, it will be like custom made to your foot. That's how people change. When it's every day, a little something in the direction of the big goal. It's the only way to be successful in any area, by the way. Patience, but working towards the goal, although we don't really see the results immediately. That's how it is in business. That's how it is with health. That's how it is with everything. What's better, to do 9-hour workout 1 time a week or to do half an hour every day? Half an hour every day You will not feel the difference. You will not see the difference. But after a month or two, you'll feel different and you'll see the difference. That's how change works. So Teshuvah is very important, not to delay it, to sham tehekevuratchem. If you put it to the future, over there, but that's when it doesn't work like that. A change works when it's a little by little, but starting from now. And then when the small goal, remember, the small goal matches the big goal, then that's how you attain success. That's how you make it to the big goal. But if the small goal does not match the big goal, it doesn't work. This is the part that I call the teshuvah, the reaching in. The second point was the tefillah. Rabotai, more than ever, and this year, there's going to be a lot of tefillah done because every single person on this planet Earth has had a tough past few months, be it at a financial level or at a health level, a dramatic level, or social level, or whatever level. We all had to deal with this terrible situation that the whole world is suffering. And then tefillah is going to come be'emet, it's going to come from the heart. We want to talk to God about a couple things here. Lev nishbar v'nidke Elohim no tivzeh. When a person comes with a heart, broken heart, Hashem listens. Ima'amakim kiraticha Hashem. You call Hashem from the depth. And that's what's happening now. Rabotai, I would like to share with you a secret that is powerful, incredible. I want to thank Stephen actually for sending it to me from Rabbi Biderman. I watched this 4-minute video and I would like to share it with you. It's an incredible chidush on the name of Rashi, and it changed a little bit my perspective of Rosh Hashanah. I always had Rosh Hashanah as it's a day of Malchut, Malchut Tova Kol Mashallah. Of course, I'm not taking away from that. The ikar of the day is definitely to have God's kingdom on us, and the rest Hashem knows what He's doing. But there is still a component of Rosh Hashanah, which is a day of decision. I mean, the decision-making of the year happening, and this is definitely a day you want to let pass by, So look at this Gemara in Masechet Baba Metzia, Daf Kuvav, page 106. Rabotai, it's worth paying attention. There's a halakha there that discusses the following. If someone rents a field to plant, a vegetable, whatever it is. And imagine that year the drought was so strong, or there was locusts that passed by and ate everything, or it just was a disaster of the year. But it's not something personal to him. It was all the fields of the region that got affected by this. So it's a general a curse that happened around. And now this person comes time to pay, and he says, well, the way we made the arrangement was not money. It was a share of the crop. So let's say he said, you're going to get 1/3 of the crop for the rental of the place, and I get 2/3 for the work and for the labor and for the investment. In this case, says the Gemara, since it's not a set price, but it's based on the crop, since he got 0, he had no income, so he owes nothing to the owner. It's called Makat Medina. Makat Medina is a decree on the whole region. Says the Gemara, but there's one case that is the exception to the rule. And what is that? If at the beginning of the contract, the owner of the field says to this person, tell me something, what is it that you're going to plant? It says, well, I'm planning on planting wheat. He says, fine. And then, without telling him, instead of planting wheat, he's planting barley. And he lost the whole crop because the same story, the rest of the story is the same. Says the Gemara, in this case, he has to pay the owner because he changed from wheat to barley. Asks the Gemara, it doesn't make any sense. You still have the argument of Makat Medina. It was a decree on the whole region. Who cares if it was wheat, if it was barley? Especially if the contract said barley at the beginning and he planted barley for sure, he would be patur. And if he planted wheat and it was wheat, he would be patur. But now that he said wheat and he changed his mind and he planted barley at the end, so he has to pay? It doesn't make any sense. Answers the Gemara, open your ears, Rabotai. The Gemara says, because the owner could say, if you would have planted wheat, perhaps you would have had good results. Now that you planted barley, you messed it up. Does it make any sense to you, this Gemara? 0 sense. Who cares if it's, what are you talking about? Messing up plans. There was a regional drought, or there was a regional flood. There was a regional locust. How is that going to change? Rabotai, the Gemara continues and says, you know why? Because I prayed for wheat on Rosh Hashanah. And the Pasuk says, V'tigzar omer vayakom lach. The Gezerah comes, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu could be mekayem that Gezerah. I'm going to read to you Rashi. You ready for listening to Rashi? Rashi is talking about Rosh Hashanah. The owner says, because on Rosh Hashanah, I prayed for wheat. And if you would have planted wheat, maybe it would have worked. But now that you changed to barley, my tefillah was worthless. Listen to Rashi, Rabotai. Rashi explains the Gemara and says these words. Ma shetevakesh mina yotzer ye'aseh. On Rosh Hashanah, at least most probably such a powerful day, that whatever you ask from Borei Olam, he will do. Va'ani lo bikashti min hashamayim b'tchilat hashana. I didn't ask from heaven for the beginning of the year, shiatzlicheni b'seorim, that they should give me hatzlacha with barley. Ela b'chitin. I asked for wheat. Rabotai, this is the Gemara telling you that's why. This is halacha, Rabotai. This is halacha in Shulchan Aruch. That he owes him the money because he changed what he asked for. I don't want to focus on the change. It's difficult to understand this Gemara. But I want to focus on the no change because this sheds light on the power of the Tefillah on Rosh Hashanah. It means that even if the rest of the world could be in chaos, if you ask the right Tefillah on Rosh Hashanah, you could be saved. Against the Makat Medina. We better think well before we ask for something on Rosh Hashanah. Make sure you know where you want to invest, because if you're going to ask for Hatzlacha for a certain place, you got to match. The power of the Tefillah of Rosh Hashanah. And together with the Lev Nishbar V'Nidke Elohim Lo Tivzeh, with the situation of so many of us, so many of our brethren who have been suffering the past few months. And who knows what's coming? Be'ezrat Hashem, we hope only light will be coming. But who knows? Tefillah is going to be so much be'emet. Karov Hashem lichol koreah, lichol asher yikra'u be'emet. We really have to pay attention to these words. Find a moment to have a one-on-one conversation with God and say, I really need your help. I never thought I would be in this situation. How many people who felt so comfortable, Baruch Hashem, have been blessed in many different levels, and all of a sudden they find themselves in front of the wall, and they need help. They're asking for basics or for not basics, it doesn't matter. But just to open the heart in a deep way. And the Gemara tells you, "Tigzar omer v'yakom lach." It could have gone against the Gezerah. We have to really make a real good tefillah. And I want to tell you a chidush, Rabotai. There's a moment to read the words of the tefillah, and I strongly believe that there's a moment to close the book of the tefillah. We need to close the book of the tefillah at one point and open, instead of the book of the tefillah, the book of the heart. There's so much to read throughout the days of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, etc., that sometimes we don't take the luxury of closing the book, closing the eyes and opening the heart, and speak mima'amakim, from the depth of our heart, with our language, with our words, with our feelings to express what we really, really want. We need to do that. We need to be courageous in a sense. Close the book and speak your mind. What do we say in the tefillah? Shema tefilotenu? No. What do we say? Shema kolenu. It doesn't say, God, listen to my prayers. No, it says, listen to my voice. A voice is deeper. It's not a words. You put whatever you want in the voice. A mother could listen to the voice of the baby. He said no words. But the mother understands exactly what the kid wants. You could ask any lady in the audience. When your baby was crying, you knew what he wanted. And they'll tell you from the cry, I could tell you if he's hungry, if he wants to get changed, if he needs something else, a stomach ache. Kol, because a kol comes from the depth. Mima'amakim comes from the heart. Who doesn't have a heart connection to the kol this year? We all do, somehow, at some level. We all got affected. So let's take this opportunity to make the real tefillah. Based on the book, but then close the book. Please listen to me. Close the book and speak your heart. It could be 1 second, it could be 1 minute, and sometimes without realizing it could be 10 minutes. But we have to speak from the heart, because that day, מה שתבקש מן היוצר יעשה. I don't know how Rashi could write such I almost want to say almost like arrogant words coming from us, speaking for us. Whatever you ask from Hashem, ya'aseh. I don't know. I don't fully comprehend. Rashi HaKadosh writing the Pshat Gemara. Ma shetevakesh min hayotzer ya'aseh. Take these words, remember forever. Whatever you ask will be done. Nice the time, nice the moment. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. It has to be in the language of emet, in the language of truth. You have to speak the language God understands. And that language is the language of truth. What you really have. Nobody taught you to say. Something you want to say. Something you come from the depth of your heart. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu lo tivzeh. He will listen. 100%. Better than any other day on Rosh Hashanah. So that's the tefillah. So far we have reaching in, we have reaching up, and now we're going to talk about reaching out. Reaching out is the tzedakah. You know, I'm not a big fan of gematriot, etc. I respect those who do, and I used to be a fan of, you know, those. But you know, in life you grow in different. That's fine. But there's one I'm going to share with you, because the source is holy, holy. Rabbi Shimshon Meostropolia. He says a gematria that is incredible. You know, what we just said, Teshuva-Tefilah-Tsedaka, is also called in the language of Chachamim, Tzom Kol Mamon. Tzom is the fast, it refers to the Teshuvah. Kol is the voice, which we just spoke about, the Tefillah. And Mamon is the money that a person uses to be generous. And we'll go back to that. It doesn't have to be always money, but many times it does. So it's interesting that each one of these three words is the exact equal numerical value. Tzom is 136. Kol is 136. And Mammon is 136. To teach us something, first of all, that one should not think that one of the three is more important than the other. The same way the Teshuvah is definitely very, very important. So too the Tefillah is as important. And Tzedakah, some people don't look at the Tzedakah as important as the Teshuvah or the Tefillah. Well, comes Rav Shimshon Meostropolia, and he tells us it's the same gematria. It's not just a coincidence. If it's the same number, it means to tell you it's the same level of importance. Even more than that, he says. I'll read to you what he says. Incredible. There's a pasuk that tells us that we read every Friday night in the Mizmor Shel Yom HaShabbat. Ishbag lo yeda, uchsil lo yavin et zot. There's some people bad, somebody who is not intelligent. Lo yeda, uchsil lo yavin et zot, and a ksil, a fool, will not understand this. What are we talking about, says Rav Shimshon Meostropolia. Listen what he says. Ishbar lo yeda. Bar, what is the gematria of this foolish man? Bar is 272. 272 is 136 plus 136. We're talking about the person who thinks that the Teshuvah and the Tefillah is the most important. So it equals together. 136 plus 136 is 272. It does tzedakah, it's okay, whatever. You don't need tzedakah to be forgiven. The most important is the Teshuvah. But what did we say? It's the same number. It's 136. Uchsil lo yavin et zot. The ksil does not understand zot. What is dot? 408. 408 is the 136 that was missing from the 272. You have in total 136 times 3 is 408, because the ksil doesn't understand that. But you need the three elements. The same way the teshuvah is essential and the tefillah is also essential, the tzedakah, the reaching out, is also essential. And I would like to take a moment to talk about this. There are some people in this audience that know. And whenever somebody has a very serious situation, I give them a little homework. Usually a health problem. And I tell them, look, there's one question I ask the person. Are you essential to a community, yes or no? Are you doing something for the community that everyone needs you? It's called in the language of Rabbi Israel Salanter, Ish Sha'arabim tzrichim lo. A person that the community, that the Rabbim, that the Tzibur needs. If you are a person who is essential to the Tzibur, you have a lot of zichuyot. You don't live one life, you live 150 lives. If 150 people need you, and if 300 people need you, then you live 300 lives. Before this person is affected, a long time will come. It's the biggest segula. I would say the only segula that really works is that. It's not a segula. It's not hocus pocus. You don't have to put, anything weird. Just need to be a person who is called Ish Sha'arabim tzrichim lo. Do the tzibur need you, yes or no? If the tzibur needs you, you're a partner with God. He needs you here. He needs you here. He needs to feed the people. He needs to feed the synagogues. He needs to feed the yeshivas. He needs people like you. He's not going to get rid of you so fast. He needs you here. You're his partner. Ish Sha'arabim tzrichim lo. Rabbi Israel Salanter used to give this advice, and that's why I also give it. Who am I? I don't make this up. I take from the Gedolim. He said, be someone that people need. If you live just for yourself, then you got to have a lot of zechuyot to defend yourself. If you live for others, then all these people will depend on you. All these people that you help, all these communities, all these institutions. Hey, my friend, you got a lot of friends now. You are a person that the community needs. And when you're there, in good standard, because you're a partner with God, because you're a partner with the people, you just have multiple lives. And this just opened the whole thing in my mind of how to conduct ourselves. Whenever there's a problem, you have a safek, you have a doubt, should I do this or should I do that? Whenever one thing is good for another person, that's the one you should be taking. And I'm going to give you an example. You should really, really think about it. This morning in my class, my Gemara class, I give another class at from 9 to 10 a.m. In that Gemara class, I don't remember how it came up. We started discussing something. When the people start selling the auctions, you know what happens usually? What do people do? They grab, they could, of course they talk, but saying if they don't talk, the very religious ones, what do? They take a book of Tehillim and they start reading the Tehillim. Of course, on the Rosh Hashanah, it's very good to read the Tehillim. It's David HaMelech, blah, blah, blah. We know this. Okay. There's one point of reflection. Look, I'm just putting it out there. You think about it. As a person who speaks to people, I appreciate when people in the audience, give you the courtesy of eye contact, or give you the courtesy of, falling asleep. I guess it's stronger than sometimes you can't control it, but at least don't take a book and read something else. I'm saying? I'm not going to speak for long. It's going to be 5 minutes, 10 minutes. you could do that at another moment. Teshuva, if you're even allowed to study something when somebody is speaking. Moshe Feinstein said it's asur from the Torah to do that because you're embarrassing someone. He's speaking and you're telling him, basically, I'm not interested in what you have to say. You're not doing a mitzvah, my friend. You're doing an avirah. I'm thinking now, the guy who is up there for 5 minutes or 10 minutes trying to sell an item for the shuls to survive. And we take a book of Tehillim and you start reading. Isn't it the same thing? Give courtesy to the guy in front of you. And if you have a safek, a doubt if reading Tehillim is better or giving kavod to the person who is doing the job that nobody wants to do, which is to sell items and to force down the throat of the people to take a couple of bucks out of them for the survival of their shul, right? Pay the bill for them to enjoy the shul. Can we give that person kavod? Can we just give him the kavod? Even if you don't want to bid, look at the man. Look at him in the eyes. I don't know. It's a thought that came to me because that's also chesed. That's also giving. To give kavod, to give courtesy, to give the right respect that the human being deserves. Instead of looking in the book when he's trying to raise funds to pay the bill for everyone. So that's just a thought. I don't think we should ban the reading of the Tehillim during the auctions. Read Tehillim, you have the whole day to read Tehillim. That's because you want to sleep later. That's it. So read later. It's okay. You can give him the courtesy to this person. Botai, today is right before the Shana and everyone is busy, and kol hakavod, all of you came here. Just want to, conclude with a thought on this topic, and there's a story that happened during COVID that is incredible, just incredible. I heard this story yesterday, and shows you that to do chesed, of course, institutions need money that's never going to go away, and this year more than ever, many institutions have difficulties, as you already know. And it's going to hurt all of us to give more. But you know what? The Gemara in Masechet Gittin says the following, Rabotai. We always do the opposite of everyone else. That's why we're successful in Jewish people. The Gemara in Gittin Daf Zayin says the following, I quote, Im ro'eh adam shemizonotav metzumtzamim. If a person sees that his parnasa is not doing great, yiten tzedaka. That's crazy. Tell you, what do you mean? I cannot give like last year. No, give. You want that tzlacha? Give. When it hurts, that's when it works. Give more, help more. You become a person that the community needs. Maybe previous years, the community didn't need another 500, another 1,000, whatever amount a person could give. Maybe they did make a difference. You don't become a person shatzibur tzrichim lo, sharabim tzrichim lo, because you gave a small donation. This year, you become a person that the community needs. Wherever you are, wherever you pray, wherever you give your donations. Because every institution needs help. So it's a beracha that we could become a person that the community needs just by helping with what we could do. When we make that effort, we become needed. It's a beracha, it's a protection for us. But we have to be creative, because for those who cannot help financially, or even for those who could help financially, we have to use our creativity to help in other ways. I'm going to tell you a story, Rabotai, is so beautiful. You remember a few months ago when Pesach came, the whole of America, especially the North, was hit by this plague, COVID-19. Many families could not do Pesach together. For the first time, you had, a couple doing Pesach without the children, without the grandchildren. It was hard. It was tough. Can you imagine how difficult it was for those widows who were alone to do a seder, to do something? You know how many calls I got before Pesach? Rabbi, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to do it. What do I do? I never did Pesach alone. The old women called me. What do I do? So I had to go through the seder to tell her what the essential parts were. She's not going to read the whole Haggadah. She's not going to do it. What do we eat? How much is the shiur? It was challenging, very challenging. So this is a story of such a lady who lives in Lakewood, New Jersey. Her name is Mrs. Monk. This lady lost her husband, and she couldn't spend the holiday with her family. She's a very vulnerable, older person. So she was going to spend the Pesach alone. Her next door neighbor, this separate house, had a window that was not too far from one of her windows. Next door neighbor. Houses are pretty close. They said, you know what? Let's try the Shabbat before Pesach. We're both going to open the windows. We will bring our dining room table close to the window, and you bring your dining room table close to the window. And let's see if we could, communicate. We're going to sing the songs, and let's see if you could hear us. Let's do Kiddush, let's do, and if you could hear us, then we got something. Maybe we could do it for Pesach. So she said, oh, that's so nice of you. Let's try. So they did it. Friday night, Shabbat morning, they tried the thing, and it worked pretty well. She was enchanted. She said, you know what? We're going to do that for Pesach. At least I'm not going to be by myself, She has a seder being conducted by the neighbor. She could participate. They were so nice. They accommodated her. They brought the table. And the night of the seder comes, and they do this. At the conclusion of the seder, there are songs. Chad Gadia, Echad Mi Yodea, all the songs that some people like doing. Usually many of us, we're tired, we go to sleep. But many people like to say it. You said the Arabic songs, you said it. But each community had their own, stamp on certain songs and certain tunes, very particular to each community. This lady happened to be Yeke from Germany. Apparently the Yekes from Germany, they have very specific tunes and very things. At the conclusion of the Seder, to her surprise, the next door neighbor starts singing the exact same songs that she's accustomed to sing. And she starts crying. She said, I didn't know you were Germans. Like me, like from the Berlin, I don't know where she was, like originally from. And I didn't know you had the same minhag as me. I said, yeah. They sing the whole song, the 2 nights. She's so thrilled. She felt so good about, of course, based with the situation that was, she felt good. She had something at least. Rabotai, at the conclusion of Pesach, she calls her son and she says, you don't know what I just discovered. The neighbors, she starts telling him the whole story. They know all our tunes. They did the same like us. He said to her, can I tell you a little secret? He says, sure. She says, of course. He says, about a week before Pesach, your neighbors called me and they asked me, what songs do you sing after the Seder? And I told them that you're German and you have very different tunes than the regular people do in Lakewood. And they said, would you please record the songs and send them to us so we learn them and we practice them for a week so that when the night of the Seder comes, we could sing them for your mother so she's comfortable hearing her own tunes. And they practiced, the whole family, every night for a week before Pesach. They sat around the table, men, women, and children, and they studied the tune of the Haggadah the way she was accustomed to, and all the songs that come with it, in order to be fluent with it, so that she would be feeling at home. That's chesed. That's a chesed that cost them $0. But that's real pioneers of chesed. This is incredible. It's called to be creative, to try to help others. And that's what we got to do. When we do the 3 things, reaching in, reaching up, and reaching out, so then, מה שתבקש מן היוצר יעשה. What you ask from God, He'll do it for you. And that's what we have to do. So I want to wish everyone a ketiva v'chatima tova, to try to remember the classes that I tried sharing with you and give you some perspectives. I thank you for that. I wish you an excellent year. 5781 will be the best year ever, Be'ezrat Hashem. As I say, we'll see you next year, Be'ezat Hashem, in a few days. And I wish you the best for these Chagim. Be well. My pleasure to always be with you. I will, as always, unmute you.